Hi everyone, here we are again for another Hatton's live session with myself, Dave, and today, as in the title, we're taking a closer look at Hornby's brand new 2020 tooling Princess Royal, and this is one of the biggest locomotives that Hornby's brought out this year. There's 5 variations come through already, and you can click that link in the description to find out more, but otherwise we'll be taking a look at the locomotives, the models themselves, a bit of the history as we go along too, and really looking at some of the finer points as well. If you do have any questions regarding the Princess Royals, either real or model, do put them in the chat and I'll get round to answering some of your questions too. And as said, this is a brand new model by Hornby, completely fresh tooling. It was announced in 2019 and the first models were released in February 2020. And we've just had 2 further locomotives in stock as well, bringing that to 5 in total. You can buy them you can buy them normal digital fitted and you can buy them digital ready as well. And they really are exquisite. Straight away there, we've had a question regarding the price. They start at £171. That's the same across all 5 different variations so far. And they are £184.50 for the digital fitted versions as well. So you can see here some of the really fine details. With it being such a large locomotive, it's quite hard to get it all close up in shot, really, but it really is an LMS thoroughbred. It's the first Pacific locomotive designed by William Stanier for the London Midland Scottish Railway. The first 2 were built in 1933, and then 10 more were built in 1935 as well. This particular variation is the original LMS Crimson Lake livery. So a lot of you will be quite familiar with this. It is a really attractive colour scheme there, carried by LMS locomotives from, well, pretty much through the whole history of the LMS, really, from the 1923 grouping right up until the late 40s when they became part of British Rail. And the history, actually, the livery goes back more into the Midland Railway colour scheme of the Crimson Lake there as well. But this is the particular LMS variation of it on number 6212, which is Duchess of Kent. These locomotives were named the Princesses after members of the royal family, but they also became, some of them were named Queens, some of them were named Duchesses as well. But the name Princess Royal stuck after the first locomotive, number 6200, which carried that name. So the locomotives came in, completely transformed express services on the London Midland Scottish Railway. They were the first 462 tender locomotives to run on the West Coast Main Line as well. The London North Western Railway had experimented with 462 tank engines before that, but otherwise the largest locomotive you had was the Royal Scots designed a few years earlier. And this really put the LMS back in the races with the LNER as well, to work against the Flying Scotsman, which ran on the East Coast Main Line, the A1s and A3s being built at the same time. And Hornby has done the model justice. It revolutionised a lot of their models as well as the real services as well. And it's a model that's been in Hornby's range since the 1950s in various different forms. The last model to be tooled was released in about 2002. So this really is a complete full up from the ground upgrade, and you can see the detail there as well, especially under the cab where you've got the separate injectors. And one area, if we switch between locos onto our next one, we're heading over to a blue loco now, and this is Princess Marie Louise. And you can see some of the detail differences there as well. Hornby have really catered for all the differences in this class of 12 locomotives. It's surprising, actually, just how detailed they really do go down between the different areas. You've got the different top feed styles on the boiler there. You have the different length smoke boxes as well between the original 2 and the later 10. You have the difference in the valve gear there as well, even down to the different styles of reversing rod on the side, just to the side of the boiler there as well. So Hornby, for a class of 12 locomotives that really did have their own individual differences, Hornby really have gone to town on making sure that they're not only accurate for the particular running number, but also the livery that they carry as well. So you really can choose a specific date, time, and locomotive and know that you are getting that model right. But let's have a chat about the blue. I think a lot of you quite like this blue already. And this was a real change from the Crimson Lake and the wartime black liveries that the locomotives had carried before. You can see that it is a really rich colour scheme. And this was the first British Railways express colour scheme for their express prestigious locomotives when they inherited them from the Great Western as well. Hornby's really got a knack for this BR blue livery, I think. It is one of the shades to get absolutely spot on. And seeing them in this Caledonian Railway inspired livery as well really makes them fantastic to see, heading over Beatot Bank, heading into Scotland, pulling some of those fine expresses up there as well. And Hornby have covered all different running numbers on these. The 5 variations so far do come with all different numbers as well. So no two are the same, either with the details, the livery, or the running number as well. And of course, if you can't, you're already itching to get one of these, there is a link in the description as well. But you can see some of the BR era modifications there as well. You've got the BR era smokebox number plate and the smokebox shed code there as well, as long as the early crest, which puts it between the late 1940s and roughly the mid 1950s, sort of 1953, 1954. So we'll change colour again and we'll come on to release number 3. So we are heading over now. And now we have a green locomotive. This is the standard BR Brunswick green livery. Again, Hornby's really got a skill for bringing through green locomotives and getting the shade just right on this Brunswick livery at the moment as well. This with the gold lining on there too, and we are looking at Queen Maud here, number 46211, the penultimate member of the class to be built. You can just see there at the front that pivoting bogie mechanism as well, with not a lot of space under the frames there either. It really is impressive how they've managed to get that in there, but still negotiate radius 2 curves as well. So if you do have some of the tighter set track curves, should I say, this locomotive will get round them as well. And you can just about see on the underneath, it has got the adjustable bar, should you want to have the more authentic coupling space between the locomotive and tender, or let it move more around your layout on tighter curves as per so. You can also see while we've got it upside down, you can see the detailed brake rigging and the water scoop near my right hand there. And you can also see the connection, the white connection towards the front of the tender. That is for the digital socket in the tender, which is an 8-pin socket. And it's also got space for a DCC sound speaker. You can either use Hornby's TTS decoder for the Princess Royal, or you can use your own decoder, and there's space in there for a 28mm round speaker as well. Just let you get another closer look at that. And you can see the difference there from last time is we do have the separate top feed and dome, which if we go back to 46206 for a second, you'll see that that is combined. Again, just showing some of the boiler detail differences. With only 12 locomotives in the class, a lot of people think they're quite the same, and they really do not have this level of differences. And it's commendable that Hornby have put the effort in to really not only look at the liveries, but the specific histories of each locomotive as well. So I've done 3 locos now. We've covered about 30 years of the class's history, coming right through from the original LMS Crimson Lake. And the latest one we looked at again was Queen Maud. That's the late crest livery. So this came in about 1957. So any of you Era 5 modelers out there, maybe you've got a couple of diesels or some other LMS locomotives on your layout already. This is a really good one to add to that transition era collection. But what about if you fancy a bit of both? What about if you are a BR era modeler and you're thinking, well, that Crimson Lake you showed first, Dave, that really was the ticket for me. Well, you're actually in luck. The LMS managed to get permission to paint a lot of its, well, the London Midland region, should I say, actually, of British Railways, gained permission to paint a lot of its express locomotives back into the Crimson Lake livery in the late 1950s. They did have to have the BR number and the emblem on them, but it really was a callback to those eras, the 1930s and the early 1940s as well, when these locomotives were revolutionising services between London, Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool, Carlisle and Glasgow as well. Really transforming that. And this was the last hurrah, really, of the class. They were withdrawn at the end of 1962. but they did get one last shot in the original style livery there. And I've got to say, this is my favourite condition to see them in. Just that mix of BR livery, but also the colour scheme there. You've got the start of the story with the LMS style Crimson Lake, but the end of the story with the Lake crest as well, covering for your 1960s condition too. This would look fantastic on a rake of maroon Mark 1s, rake of Stanier period 3s as well, both of which you can get in 00 scale to complement this model. I think I've just answered Ben's question there in which one's my favourite anyway. So, and as said, you can see the differences in some of these, and I'll show you some closer up on our final model that I'm going to show you today. And I think this is the one that a lot of you will have been waiting for as well. This is the front half of Princess Elizabeth. This is one of the 2 locomotives that's currently preserved and operating rail tours across the UK pretty much ever since its withdrawal. Really, it's still running out there today on the main line. A lot of you may have seen it. This is one of the original 2 locomotives built in 1933, and there's a lot of differences between this and the other 10 that were built later. You'll see the different style of valve gear on the front. You'll see the third type of boiler with the top feed and a separate dome as well. There's a lot of different fittings in how the bogie truck operated as well. And again, just to say that once more, Hornby really have honed down on those details, making each locomotive as individual and accurate as you can get them. So the reason I've taken it apart, so we can get a good look inside that cab there. And you'll notice just inside, this has got a little bit of a secret feature as well. It's something we've not seen on Hornby models for quite a few years. And that is a flickering firebox mechanism. So whether you're an analog or digital user, when this is heading around your track, this will light up. It will have the flickering firebox mechanism in there of an orange glow coming through, showing the roaring fire that this locomotive would need to haul heavy trains over the West Coast Main Line in real life. And it's fantastic to see that feature back as well. It's not been in Hornby's models for quite a few years now, and it really has come down to some critical acclaim as well. We can really see the definition there too. There's a lot of detail in, especially the quality of the printing, which unfortunately isn't coming up quite too well on my camera, but the style of the numbers there, the straw lining as well, the full cab detail, not only the flickering firebox, but also the fully detailed and painted regulator and the other instruments in there as well. You've got the folding plate there at the end too, so the driver can stand on that between the locomotive and the tender. And again, just to take a closer look at that full valve gear on the front and also the pivoting bogie mechanism too. You've got a full NEM coupling socket on the front, and you also have one on the tender as well. And again, the tender's just as good as the front half, really, with a lot of the printing on there. The coal load is removable too, and there is an area inside should you wish to put your own coal in there. Again, flicking it underneath, you can see the brake rigging. You can also see the axles, which have a decent amount of play. You've got the NEM coupling there as well. And as said, the aforementioned attachments to the front too. And under the hood as well, it is just as good a model as it looks. It's got an immense amount of weight. It tops the scales at 640 kilos. You've got a 5-pole motor in the locomotive, roughly just under the dome. And that's also got a brass flywheel on it as well. So these locomotives in real life are expected to haul heavy trains, often up to 14 or 15 coaches, over steep Cumbrian hills, over the hills, getting over the Scottish borders as well, heading to Glasgow. A lot of the times they're expected to do that without stopping or very minimal stops. So you need a really powerful locomotive in real life. And Hornby's locomotive is just as powerful in model form as well. It will have absolutely no issues handling some of the long rakes on your layout as well. I will put that on there again so you can see the start of this. And it's great to see that you've all got some of these models already as well. They really are a great part to get in a collection. And of course, if you click that link, you'll find the links if you do fancy picking one up as well. I'm just going to bring that green one back on for a second because I think some of you are seeing the connection here actually in the chat. and the green one really makes it stand out. Now, a lot of you are saying, hang on a minute, that looks a little bit like a Great Western King. And you wouldn't be far off, actually, as the designer of this, William Stanier, actually served his apprenticeship at the Great Western Railway under Charles Collett. So the Princess design borrowed heavily from the Great Western King. And again, you can see a lot of that in Hornby's design as well. You can see how it's got all-wheel pickups there. It's got the same style of tender connections. It's got the same style of reliable running there as well. Really powerful motor, weighty chassis, and the space for digital and sound in the tender as well. So it's interesting that life imitates art in that way, really, in that the locomotives benefited a lot from being similar designs in real life, but also Hornby developing the King in 2016 and 2017 did have some impact on bringing through the Princess as well, as did the previous release of the Princess Coronation, which was actually the latest, the sort of upgraded version of the Princess Royal that we see here. That's a model that's also available. And the original locomotives, number 6200 and 6201, really show that individual styling. You can see the Swindon style valve gear that's only fitted to these two locomotives. And again, Hornby have catered for that as well. As we'd expect with Hornby, we've got all the usual goodies as well. Nice firm box, really good plastic clamshell interior there as well. Will keep your models safe and secure while you keep it in the box. Got a full instruction manual there as well in the usual style. You've got full information on keeping your locomotive lubricated, maintained, how to fit digital, how to fit the extra details there as well. And as mentioned down the chat, it is possible to disconnect the locomotive from the tender too. It's just on the screw coupling and the adapter plate you see there as well. So if you do want to take them apart for maintenance or fit in a suitable locomotive crew, maybe, you can do that with relative ease. And again, it's all mentioned in the manual as well. You do get some extras. I'll try putting that up to the camera. You've got the brake rigging there. You've got an extra NEM coupling. You can just about see the additional steps that go in front of the bogie. Now, it's only best to put those on if you're not running it round set track curves, as they will collide with the side of the bogie otherwise. But if you are displaying the model or you're keeping it on pretty generous curves, you can put those on without an issue. Exactly the same with the extra wheel set in there as well. That is a flanged wheel set, whereas on the locomotive as provided, you'll see that it doesn't have a flange. That allows it to get round set track curves and set track points as well. But again, if you're running on a more generous track layout, you have got a bit more leeway there, shall we say. You can easily swap over the wheel set there too and change that over to improve the look of the loco. But let's be honest, guys, it doesn't need a lot to improve the look of this loco already. I'm going to come back to the BR Maroon version here. Can you just imagine this on a really large layout, hauling 14 coaches, crying up shap with the 4-cylinder beat going there as well that you can get from the Hornby TTS sound decoder too. These locomotives did transform how the LMS operated. They had a lot of smaller locomotives. This was the first big Pacific engine that they had in the 1930s and completely revolutionized travel on the West Coast Main Line right up until electrification and dieselization in the 1960s. So to get a real top quality model out of Hornby as well really does fill a good gap in the collection. We've already got locomotives like the Princess Coronation out there as well. There's great models of the Royal Scot. And to bring the Princess Royal up to that standard as well really does just fill the gap in what is available for you LMS fans out there too. And of course, as always, it's not just LMS fans who can benefit from these models. There was one particular locomotive. They've not released a model of it yet, but it's maybe one in the future, number 46203, which was actually displayed in North Wales at Butlins in Pwllheli from the 1960s until the mid 1970s, and it was taken there by rail as well. So if you have a model of a layout based in Wales or on the Cambrian coast, you can have one of these giant locomotives heading along your sleepy little branch line, hauled by a diesel or a similar locomotive to go on display there as well. And as we mentioned earlier in the chat, number 6201 is one of the 2 locomotives that's preserved. You can still see this, and 46203, Princess Margaret Rose, to this day. So anyone who models the more modern era, anyone who models diesels or electrics or even privatization right up to the current day, 46201's always been out there on the main line, hauling rail tours all across the UK. It's even worked down to Exeter. It's worked into King's Cross as well. So it's been on a lot of different territories than the Princesses got to in service there as well. So whether you're an LMS diehard who really likes their locomotives going back to the 1930s and wants one of these models for that detail, whether you're a fan of large steam locomotives and high quality models, whether you want a new locomotive for your modern image layout, but you want something with a little bit of 1930s class, I think the Princess is definitely one for you to take a look at. With these 5 variations, with 3 distinct colour schemes you've got there as well, and no doubt more to come from Hornby in the future, covering some of the different models there as well. It really is something to take a closer look at, and you can do that by clicking the link in the description. We've got some really high definition photos on our website as well. We've got all the links on how to purchase one of these too. In all the liveries we've had, we can give you some great ideas on formations for them as well, if you want to get in touch with our customer experience team or products team too. But these complement a lot of what's about and out there at the moment. If you've got a rake of Mark 1s, if you've got some of Hornby's Stanier period 3 coaches, even if you have a BR Blue or more modern rail tour rake as well, you've got an excuse for a Princess. And with the performance matching just as how good it looks as well, it really is something worth taking a closer look at. And I'll let you have one final closer look just at the front half of Princess Elizabeth there. And there you go. As said, if you want to look at some really ultra high quality photos, head over to the website, click the link in the description. But otherwise, hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about these LMS thoroughbreds that have a great model of them now available to order as well. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.